Hello, dear brothers and sisters in Christ. It is always our pleasure to greet you from St Elisabeth Convent here in Belarus, Minsk. I want to first of all congratulate you on the Feast of Holy Trinity. Right now, upstairs in our beautiful Church of Reigning Mother of God, we have the vigil that is dedicated to this feast. Some of you are living in America and it's only Saturday morning. Some of you live in Europe and you are getting ready to go to your churches for the vigil. So I wish you all the best during this beautiful feast, which is actually the birthday of our church. Today with you, we are going to discuss some personal stories. The agenda of our live stream, My Personal Path to God. Please remember that we have the live chat where we are always happy to hear from you. Where are you from? We are waiting for your questions, which we are going to answer in the end of our live stream. And always, nice to hear your opinion and thoughts. First of all, I want to introduce to you our brother Alexander. Probably you saw the fruit of his labors on our website, because Brother Alexander is our chief interpreter. So Brother Alexander, please share who you are and your connection to St Elisabeth Convent.
Okay, good to be here and welcome to all of you. I work at St Elisabeth Convent on the English and French versions of its website, and I write and translate texts for the website. To me, my work here is very much a path towards God. It's a part of it. My journey towards God is a work in progress. It is not finished. And by working here, I am moving onwards. I discover my faith more and more. I learn about it. I see how the faith is practiced by the people here, by all of the believers, and I make a lot of discoveries. I'm excited about discoveries, and I'm also pleased to have the opportunity to share my discoveries and insights with you. I'll be talking to you about my path to God, and the starting point and one of the starting points that has not changed since the beginning of my path is my missions in life. And one of my missions in life is really to discover the world, to become surprised, and to share my discoveries and my excitement and my surprise with others. I'm learning about my faith. I'm becoming stronger about my faith, and I'm sharing my experiences with you through my work. I hope it feels, and I hope you all like it.
Thank you, Brother Alexander. For how many years are you associated with St. Elisabeth Convent?
That depends on where you count the time from. Now, I've been working on the websites for almost 2 years. But I was baptized here, and that was more than 15 years ago.
Oh, I see. So you know the convent, but you started to work here 2 years ago.
Okay.
Thank you, Brother Alexander. The question number one that we always get from the parishioners of churches that we visit in different countries while traveling and, spreading the word about our convent is the question, how did you decide to come to the convent? And we modestly try to avoid this, question, saying that we are actually not blessed to talk about ourselves. But you know, everyone is interested to know someone else's personal story and connection to God to gain some spiritual experience and of course inspiration. We cannot deny that beautiful stories of other people, inspire us to be better and strengthen us on our path. That's why we love to read miracles of other people and their life stories and tribulations that led them to God. Today we want to share something personal with you, and that's why the topic of our live stream is my personal path to God. Brother Alexandra, would you please share, start from your life journey, present to finding God?
Okay, so let me start from the beginning, and the beginning was my school years. I was a very good student at school, and I was very attracted to the Marxist worldview, to Marxism in general. And there were three elements in the way I saw the world. Well, first, I saw the world as a material, objective reality. Something that existed regardless of our minds, whatever we thought about it, however we perceived, it existed independently of us. Now, the second element of my worldview was my confidence, and I would say my faith. My faith in the ability and the power of my mind to discover the reality of the world, to figure it out without anybody's help. Mm-hmm. I could do it all myself. And the third element of the way I saw the world then was worldly justice, I would call it. Now, as a teenager and as a child, I would have had great difficulty articulating what I meant by justice, but right now I would say that to me the idea of worldly justice, the way I had it then, was making people happy, minimizing their suffering, treating people kindly in the hope that they will treat you kindly too. What goes around comes around. God? There was no place for God in this view. And actually I was so confident of my picture of the world that I set out to build my world and build my life on the foundation of this picture. So that's how it all began.
That's wonderful, but why did you start to think about God then? And when did your meeting with Him happen?
It happened many years later. And it happened when my picture of the world, the foundation, the rock that I was building it on, began to crumble very unexpectedly. Now, what happened? Okay, so I had this faith, unlimited confidence in my ability, the ability of my mind to make sense of the world, to explain all the things that I see, again, just through thinking and through my intelligence. Okay, so the challenge came, the very powerful challenge came when I got the opportunity and used it to study in the States. Mm-hmm. And the United States has a slightly different system of education and a slightly different set of values in education as compared to the practices and values here. And one of the values there is not factual knowledge, but your ability to connect this factual knowledge into some consistent story, some interpretation. And I was excited to study in the States. I was excited to spend my time in the library. I had my grant, the stipend, which was enough for a living. I didn't have to work, unlike the other students. I could dedicate all my time to studying, and I really loved it. But the more I was reading, the more different perspectives I was discovering, the more confused I was becoming. I had to write papers, and the papers had to tell consistent stories, and I couldn't think of a consistent story. Now, for example, I had to talk about land reform in Zimbabwe, and I couldn't tell the story consistently, because there were so many views and so many facts that had to be reconciled. It was mind-boggling. My mind was letting me down. And by then, I was married, and I was really proud of my family life. I was treating my wife kindly, and I loved my family. I always hurried to be back, and so we had a great relationship, and it seemed like it would last forever. I truly believed in one marriage for a lifetime. But then, all of a sudden, it disappeared. There was a third person, and the marriage was gone. And I couldn't understand, because I had this idea of worldly justice: treat others kindly, and they will treat you kindly.
Yes,
yeah. You give love, and you get love. I was giving love, but I wasn't getting it back. I felt betrayed. So my whole picture, my whole idea was really coming apart. At that time, I remember reading a story, a Lithuanian fairy tale, and it had this phrase: "Run for your life. The sky is falling through." Well, that's what was happening. The sky was falling through on me. So I began to realize that I was building my world and building my life on a foundation that was like sand. It was not reliable, and and I was pretty far advanced. I was about 27 then, so it was to find out at 27 that what you thought and what you believed and what you were proud of was coming apart. It was a shock, and this shock brought me to look for something different, look for some kind of permanence in life, the permanence that would not change with time, that wouldn't let me down. So a new foundation, and that was very difficult. That was a challenge. It didn't bring me to God immediately, but it got me thinking in a different direction. Now, I can tell you what I was thinking and how it all went, if we have time.
Yeah, sure. Yes, because, it's always a question of the process. It rarely happens like this. We know some lives of their, saints when it did happen very quickly. But usually, for us to arrive to God, we need to humble ourselves. We need to change the way we think. We need to change ourselves to be able to meet God, because He's always here. He doesn't need to come to us. He's here. It's just He's knocking on our door, and we have the handle only from the backside, and we need to open it. So please, yes, tell what happened then and arriving, to your baptism.
Okay, so I was beginning to realize some of the weak points. Not even the weak points in my idea of the world, but more more the weak points of my own. And one of my weak points and one of the problems that I still have and I'm working on is this idea of humility. Look, my idea, my understanding was self-centered. Mm-hmm. It was my confidence in my own mind. It was my faith in me treating treating other people kindly, and my faith that people will treat me kindly too. They almost had the obligation to. It just putting myself in the center of the world, and this is something I didn't realize that it was not quite right immediately. It took me some time. Also because of this lack of humility, I couldn't get myself to read the scripture, for example. Mm-hmm. Look, I didn't need God. Moreover, I had encounters with organized religion before, and those encounters brought me to the conclusion that religion is a lie. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I couldn't get myself to just opening the scripture and reading thoughts, really wise thoughts from the scripture there. But my academic background and my research got me to read quotes, mm-hmm. secondary sources, as we call it in the academic world. Mm-hmm. And one of the secondary sources that really impressed me was this quote about building your life on the solid rock of Christ. Yeah. And there was a second one. And the second one was the story of the righteous Job. Mm-hmm. Now, to the secular mind, and to me, of course, this was absurd.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Job, okay, I didn't believe in God then, but Job obviously believed. To him, he was real. To him, he was a real person, and so on. So he was. He loved him. He did everything for him.
Yes.
And yet, God allowed him to suffer terribly. Now, what kept him alive? Now, he didn't grumble against God. Mm-hmm. He wasn't offended in any way. He accepted everything. What was it? So that's what got me thinking. And of course, there was the intervention of my friends as well, who brought me to, who actually advised me to come to the convent and talk to the people there. The first people I talked to were the nuns, mm-hmm. and now to me, the rational person, it was a shock to hear the voice of my heart and to get the very strong impression, and this very strong impression that I got was the impression of peace.
Was it the first time that you've heard your heart and this peace, or you experienced it before and you already experienced this feeling, or it was the first time?
No, listening to my heart is not my strong point as well. But surely it wasn't the first time. I was listening to my heart when I was marrying my wife, of course, and I was listening to my heart when I was confident in my love, and so it was. It was the heart, the emotion. Yeah, I have this experience, but it was very mm-hmm. different. It was the kind of a kind of spirit. Mm-hmm. There was this peaceful spirit in there, the kind of peaceful spirit that distracted me from the panic that I was having, the panic of the world falling through on me and not treating me rightly. Mm-hmm. Another thing that impressed me really was the sharp contrast in the way I was received and in the way people talked to me from my previous experiences with people from other religions. Now, there was this first there was this respect for the free will. Yeah, so absolutely no attempt to rush things. Absolutely no attempt to even convince me of anything. Now, you would expect, and I expected too, like when people want you to believe, they would start talking to you, presenting you arguments, like explaining why the scripture is true, like what historical evidence supports the scriptures, like so they really try to get in your mind, to influence your mind and bring you to believing through your mind. Now, the approach there was different. I felt they were praying a lot for me, but there was a lot more hope and a lot more reliance on God's providence, the miracle of God. Yeah. So, and I didn't believe in miracles then. I still, miracles is one of the things that I still have difficulty with. So they were patient. They gave me things to read, but they were not the kinds of not the guidebooks for Bible studies. They were things like the writings of Ephraim the Syrian, or the quotes and writings of Seraphim of Sarov. They're still my favorite authors, and I'm still impressed. I was, back then, I wasn't reading anything religious, but I was impressed by the depth of their thought. I wasn't sharing their perspective, but it wasn't really a scientific argument that they were making. It's just that their words sounded so powerful, so convincing, and at the same time so peaceful, without really making a rational argument. And that was a completely different way of writing, a completely different type of literature that I became exposed to, and that was really that was amazing. So. Now, another thing was, of course, love and patience, those gifts of the Holy Spirit. Of course, I was rebelling. At times, I was critical. Yeah. By then, I also now many people who come to church go through a stage when they begin to notice the different irregularities of church life, the disorders, the disorganization, and so on, and they make a panic of it. Yeah. Now, I was I had I was having a similar experience too, this kind of moral panic at things that I didn't see, like examples of disorganization or inefficiency and so on in worldly terms. But so it was still there, but they were very, very patient. I felt that they would just pray. And by then, after some time, after I volunteered in a few projects with the convent and got to know the convent better, then I felt I was ready to take baptism. And I took baptism here.
You did, and did you experience these period of grace that all newly accepted to the church usually speak about. Did you experience it?
I wouldn't say so.
You wouldn't?
No. I know people are excited about it, and people feel this like lease of grace that. Now, many people talk to me about that, and I didn't have anything like that. Now, I was baptized in winter, and it was a sad and gloomy day. Otherwise, now there were no birds
the usual
singing,
winter
nothing.
Day for us.
A usual winter day. Not even snow, so it was really dark. It was 3 in the afternoon, and it usually gets dark at this time. Now there was nothing unusual, nothing changed. So I walked outside. I looked around. No, nothing changed. But there was something that changed in me. The panic was gone.
The pen.
Yeah. And the sky stopped falling through on me. I felt I was ready. I felt as if I had passed a stage, an important stage in my life, a stage beyond which I could begin to think how I was going to rebuild my world and how I was going to rebuild my life and what lessons I was going to learn from it. Mm-hmm. So, and I think the grace, the grace of God was really in this.
Mm-hmm. If you allow me, I would also like to share the story prior to my meeting God. I was born in a very good family. All the members of my family were really the blessing for us. I have 2 siblings, sister and a brother. I was baptized being a baby. I was exactly 6 months old when I was baptized. My family knows the church where I was baptized. I was baptized on my mother's birthday, so we know the date. It was 16th of August. So, but we never went to the church. I wouldn't say we were not believers, but we never spoke on this topic. We never mentioned the word God in our family. The only feast that was present in our family was Easter. My father and grandfather, mother's father, they usually took their cakes, Easter cakes, eggs, and would go to the all-night vigil and liturgy for the whole night, and then would come in the morning and treat us with blessed food. And I was always surprised, how do they survive in the church, standing there the whole night. So it was always a miracle. But as time went, we went to the church only sometimes. Not for the liturgy, just for 5 minutes. But whenever I remember those moments being in the church, it was always something magical, something bright. I felt that this is a good place. That's all what I knew about the church. I didn't know anything about my faith. And then the student years came. Before the student years, my father died. It was all of a sudden on our favorite feast, New Year, just 1 hour before 2003, my father died in front of all our eyes, unexpectedly. And all of us saw this. My world crashed, completely crashed. And I was like an observer. I saw that all those people who were guests in our house daily, my father had quite a high position, and all of the people came to him asking for something, and he really, benefacted many people during his lifetime. He was only 41 years old, and I saw all these people on his funeral, and we didn't see them anymore. And the new people who appeared in our house, they were these women from the church who were reading the psalter at the coffin of my father. They didn't leave. They supported mother because she was only 36 years old, and she was a widow with 3 children. My brother was only 2 years old. And so, for me, father was the stone of this world where our, family church was built on. So it just moved away. And I was scared that all the walls of our family will ruin and we will not survive. And I was very angry with this understanding of God. I was very daring asking him, why? I didn't see the dot in the end of life of my father. It was actually not finished for me. And right after father's death, mom started to visit the church. And very quickly, she obtained the living faith. Not just automatic going to the church just to survive and mentally, especially mentally survive. But she got the real faith. I saw that she's lost for me because I was away from the church. I got my first confession in my life, 16 years old, and communion. I'm sure I was, communed when I was baptized, when being a baby. But, in 16 years, it was probably my second communion. But then I felt rejection from the church. I didn't want to go, especially seeing that mother and my younger siblings are going there. So, we started to walk apart. And my mom, being a wise woman, she never pushed me, never. She would kindly suggest. I say no. I was a rebellion when I was a teenager. And, she didn't push me. So, but once in a while, being a student, I would go to their church during the day hours. I would stand somewhere in the corner and just cry. There was nothing bad, nothing wrong. I was just always crying when in the church. I would stand there, 10, 15 minutes and leave. And that happened once in a while. Then I started to work, nothing changed. And then I got the profession as a lawyer. And I always knew that I don't want to be a lawyer. I didn't want to study the law, and while I was studying and especially working, I realized that this is not my profession. And the question, who am I and what am I doing in this world, raised to me very early, still in my teenagers years, especially as I didn't like what I'm studying. I'm feeling that I'm moving somewhere, not really working on my talents and gifts that were given to me. I'm actually doing something that I don't really like. And this question was always in my head. And the only source that I could answer on my questions, what is this world, who am I, was philosophy. Like Brother Alexander mentioned, Marxism, I didn't like it because it's too dry. I'm a girl and I wanted something more, beautiful, more melancholic, and for me, I felt closer to philosophy of existentialism. And I read lots of materials on different philosophical branches, but it didn't give me the answer. It would give some, hints, and it was always concentrated on yourself. On your emotions, on your type of character, etc., etc. It didn't give me the answer. And then after 7 years working as a lawyer, trying to change different job positions, which was a blessing, I had something to compare with now that I didn't like. I needed this experience because I'm not easily grateful for what I have. So I really needed to have something I don't like to be now grateful for what I have now. So working the last 2 years in the bank, I completely got disappointed in this sphere of work and in my work as lawyer. And I realized that if I don't change the completely profession now, I will never be able to do this. And so after my contract expired, I just announced that I'm leaving, and I left to nowhere. I had only one plan. I wanted to live somewhere abroad because I believe that, everything what is here is bad. And if I go somewhere, there will be the better life. All our, superstitions about this. So I have friends in Germany. That's why I went there. And the only reason that I could get the visa for and stay for could be the language courses. And so I came there for I could stay maximum 90 days. And so I spent there all my summer, preparing the documents for the German school. And then, I was there. It was a nice summer, nice weather, nice little town. But I couldn't stop thinking. I couldn't stop this, worry inside me. And what next? Do I really want to learn this language? What am I going to do next? the reason to stay in the country, I would need to enter the university and study. Otherwise, I would have to come back, and I have no plan here, and so on and so forth. And so I remember this day. It was maybe 25th of June, one of the June days. I was walking in the morning along the streets of Münster, which is close to Netherlands border. And I was non-stop thinking, what next? Shall I stay here, or it's a bad plan? Shall I go back home? If I'm going to study here, what subject? Again, something more practical, or something that I would really like literature, philosophy, etc., etc. All of a sudden, my thought stops, and I say to myself, you will come to God much sooner than you think. I was so frightened. This was not my thought. Why did I think it? I was thinking on a completely different topic. Why did I think this? I was so scared. I didn't say anybody about this. I was thinking about it all the time, and I'm still thinking about it. That's how God just intervened in all this stupid thinking of mine and just let me know that you are mine and you will be with me. I continued to think this thought, and I thought to myself, I'm very proud. How am I going, even if I believe truly to God, to announce everybody else that now I believe God when I rejected Him all this time? How can I do this? Then I will show that I can change my opinion so quickly and so radically. Again, all this pride and vanity. And he was right. I was already truly believing in God in October, on my brother's birthday. So in the end of summer, in August, I came back home. I applied for national visa. I got the documents from the school, and I had to wait for a few months to get this visa. So I had no money, I had no job. I'm almost 30 years old. My birthday is soon, but I'm nothing. All my life, I believed that I can only rely on myself. There is nobody else. I can only rely on myself. And all of a sudden, this crashed. I'm nothing. I'm nothing. I cannot rely on myself. So how can I survive? How can I live on when I have nobody to rely on? And so during these months, I stayed at my mother's house, and my sister didn't work then, and she was staying with me. She's 7 years younger, but she's very wise, and she has a very long period of being churched in the church, and she has a very rich and beautiful Christian library. So, when we were talking, she saw that I actually come to a very peaceful state of mind. I just got completely disappointed in myself, and it somehow gave me peace. It was fall, September, and then October came. I don't like these months. I don't like fall. I don't like this gray, dark weather. And my family lives in a forest, in pine forest. So all these, bluish, gray, black trees, I would be depressed at looking at them in my normal state. I'm very dependent on the weather. But then I saw the nature, and I felt that it actually doesn't have any influence on me anymore. Strangely, I was so surprised. I saw the beauty even in such weather. So my sister, seeing this, she started to suggest me to read about the royal family. Do I know St Alexandra and her husband Nicholas, the last emperor of Russia, and their destiny? Of course I knew them, but history is so cold. Even us children reading about this family, how they were killed, were even impressed. That was amazing. And so I agreed to read the book. And then I discovered the spiritual side of the life of the royal family. Seeing my reaction on this book, she suggested to me is a book about the sister of St. Alexandra, St. Elisabeth. And I discovered for myself a wonderful saint, St. Elisabeth, Ella. I cannot describe how much I was touched by the life of these people. And so my sister had many books about them, and I read all of them, one after one, and I was so impressed. And at the same time, I had this peace, I had nothing to do, and I was thinking. And very close to the 26th of October, I asked God directly. In the evening, I said to him, you see that I'm confused. I don't know what to do. Could you please let me know what next? Where can I move on? I don't know how you can let me know except through the dream. But again, it shouldn't be some tricky dream. It should be very clear, otherwise I won't understand it. And so I saw the dream right before I woke up in the morning, where he clearly let me know that I won't get the visa and I will stay here. I was very much upset about it, but at the same time, I was surprised that I am nobody. I never worshipped God. I never was kind to him, but he listened to me and he gave me the answer. And so, my heart was melting and humbling. And so on the 26th of October, I got the document that I was rejected in visa, and I got two options: either get despair or stay positive and just live on and see what happens. I always choose the second one. If you despair, nobody can help you. Never. And at some point, you may lose the control over yourself and you won't be able to help yourself. So never despair. There is always, way out, and especially with God. So, and a month later, in November, I was already in the convent as a Sister of Mercy. This is my story about, coming to this point when I truly believed in God. And now we also wanted to talk about other people who, find God through atheism, agnosticism, and other religions. And Brother Alexander, you are as probably representative of the people who came to God through atheism and agnosticism. What advice would you give to other people how to find God?
Well, the journey to God is always personal, and I know that there is no rational explanation, no fixed course, no fixed route by which everyone comes to God. I came to God when I was ready for it. I came to God because I had a crisis, because I realized the need to reconsider the foundations on which I was building my life. I'm glad those crises happened, but it was very painful. So one advice that I would give probably is pay the pains that we have in our lives. They do not come without a reason. They come for a reason which will be clear for us, which will be clear to us only after some time has passed, just as it became clear to me. I didn't know why it was so painful. I didn't know why the world was crushing on me, but now I know. So patience and hope, and nothing happens without a reason. There is a positive reason for everything that happens. We just have to wait and see.
Yeah, thank you so much. Dear friend, thank you so much for your questions and discussions that are going on in the live chat. We are going to answer your questions in the end of our live stream, so stay with us. And we still have a lot of interesting things and some miracles to share with you. And I communicate through the website and, receiving the prayer requests and lots of emails from our friends with many people. And I do see among them, representatives of other religions. And it's amazing that, many people at some point get disappointed in them for different reasons. And they start to search the truth, because we always have this, surge in us. Sometimes we don't recognize it. Sometimes we call it different names. But we always have it. We need God. Without God, we are nothing. With God, we make the full, whole entity. And so, even through the online liturgies, people get enchanted seeing this beautiful service, and they feel that there is truths that coming from them, they start to investigate, they start to read, and some of them write to me already being interested in the Orthodoxy and asking some really practical and true questions, and this is always my pleasure to answer them. So, and of course, agnostics and atheistic people, they also on their way to God, because when you deny God, you must at least accept that there is God. That's what I think. Now I want to show you a fragment from the interview with a guest of our convent. 2 weeks ago, we received their guest who came to us from California. He is Orthodox, and he is the author of the program which you might be introduced to, The Man in Black. He's living in kind of, secular area next to Sonora, and he, sees that people around this area know more about, Indian religions, about Muslims, much more than they know about Orthodoxy. Sometimes they are completely ignorant about it. So he started this project and trying to invite in interesting clergy, nuns, and other people who are religious, and introducing them to their people who are welcome to attend this conference and get introduced to Orthodoxy. So this man, Jeffrey Bream, he came to us visiting Belarus in general as a tourist, and he spent some really quality time in our convent, and it was our pleasure to host him. His life story is also very interesting, being, employed in IT technologies, being a very, sober-minded and smart person. He is still Orthodox for more than 14 years, but his, journey starts from Protestantism, and that would be very nice to hear his story. We will show it to you a little bit later. There are some technical problems and we need a few more minutes, but while they're getting ready with this video, I would like to go to the next story of our friend, who is my pen friend. We are corresponding with this man for, I think, a year. And he is Orthodox from the United States of America. And his story, coming to God, is completely amazing to me. I wrote to him asking for his permission to read his emails to me, just a few fragments, to really share with you how God can interfere in the life of completely seems to be unworthy person, to really take him out of this sin that he was living in, and just to show him completely different life. So from his permission, I'm going to read it for you, and I will also ask to show a few pictures of the saint who played a great role in his life. So his story. I asked him what is his baptismal name, because his name is not Christian, and to pray for him I needed his baptismal name. So he was responded to my question. I didn't receive a baptismal name. My patron saint is a bit of an obscure one, Saint Cyprian of Antioch. His feast day is my birthday on the old calendar. Please notice all the coincidences. I have a very shameful past, living far outside of God. So when he began showing up in odd ways, though throughout my days and dreams I paid attention. The story is long and not relevant, but finally I had a dream where I was on a city bus and he was a bus driver, the only person on the bus with me. We drove through the night out of the old country to Youngstown, Ohio, where I live. He pulled the bus into the parking lot of a hall and church here, Holy Trinity Serbian Orthodox Church, and opened the doors. I got off the bus and was met by a young priest with a cup of coffee. I had never been to the church and had not been considering attending any church ever at this point. When I woke up, I called the church, met with the priest and his wife in the home next to the church. He is a young man, only a couple years older than me, and gave me a cup of coffee. So I swallowed my pride and fear and began attending liturgy. It turns out that when I found two wonderful people to be my godparents, my godfather Nick had actually worked for years with my father before he retired, and their son's birthday is on St. Cyprian of Antioch's feast day on the new calendar, which I only found out after I asked permission to take him as my patron saint, seeing as he is the one to literally bring me to Orthodoxy. So that's a little of my story. I asked him a few more questions because I was amazed, and so his next email tells us a little bit more. By the way, these horrible pictures that you see of Saint Cyprian before he became saint, he was doing the black magic, and you will see that it is relevant. Saint Cyprian had shown up in a couple of dreams before as a sort of observer. I practiced magic before being brought to God. It resulted in predictably volatile experiences, some of which were quite fantastic, and so it is easy to see the allure and snares set for our hearts of why so many disenfranchised people here fall down that path. But I began looking at ways to protect myself and my family, and St. Cyprian of Antioch kept coming up. As I started to research him, I began to be pulled further and further east into the Orthodox fathers and a few Orthodox blogs. I knew nothing about Orthodoxy, but quickly I could see how wonderfully different it was from the broken Catholicism and Protestantism I grew up around. And then in brackets he explains, when I was 19 or 20, I was many years into a horrible selfish depression. I was told to speak with a certain Catholic priest in the area that everyone loved and said was a wonderful man. That he gets how to speak with people like me. When I met him, he assumed I was there for drug rehab. I just wanted to talk about my soul and why I can't find God. I turned my back and never looked back at the Western Church. St. Cyprian was like a stern-eyed uncle, always allowing for some new bit of reading to come across my path to edify my heart, which is full of many terrible rages and lusts. Eventually, I did less and less magic and more prayer. I purchased all the Orthodox theology I could. I hit my limit of understanding with St. Maximus the Confessor, the cosmic mystery of Jesus Christ. This book was very difficult for me to get through. But anyway, his books that he read, they were amazing that only monks could understand. But still, Then when I had the dream of the Mass and the church, I knew in my heart that it was time to put away my old interests and lifestyle. It was like St. Cyprian needed to provide me the time and resources to learn about the Orthodox Church before I would have been humbled enough to listen to the dream. But also, I feel God sent someone whose path to conversion was very much like my own, with the same terrible mistakes, because he knew I could trust his saints to be his messenger and I would listen. And he also had the kindness to place me in an ancestral church my own immigrant's family attended that I was unaware of. Isn't it amazing? I have a wonderful pocket-sized Orthodox prayer book I take everywhere, along with my prayer robe, a couple small icons I bring to work to protect me. I had to rehabilitate my whole ontology, especially with concepts of sin, repentance, and salvation. These are horribly broken precepts in the West. It leads many to despair or feelings of judgment and grandiosity. So learning theology through the recitation of prayer and the catechesis has been a major healing process for me. I love this man's story because it really shows the power of God, how he can just take us and lead us. Brother Alexander, let's now a little bit come back to the convent. Does a convent play a role in your churching nowadays, and what it is for you nowadays?
Oh, very much. Now, I would say it plays a central role. I go to worship services here, and I get communed here, and I do my confessions here. But it's a lot more than that. Now, the convent is central to my spiritual growth and my personal growth. Now, one example of that is the way working at the convent has brought me to see work in the world, particularly my other work, which is teaching at the university. Now, at the convent, I clearly realize who I'm working for and why I'm doing it.
Yes,
I'm working for God, and I'm as a servant of God, and I'm pleased to have this opportunity to serve God. I'm not working to earn points for promotion. I'm not working to get appreciation, although I like it when people appreciate my work and when they like it, but I'm not working for it. It's a culture of service, an ethos of service, which is very important in professions like teaching. So working at the convent has really improved my attitude, the way I see my other jobs, and the way I see life in general. Now, it also reinforced me in the idea that I was wrong in thinking that if you treat other people justly, if you love other people, they'll love you back, and you can expect that. Mm-hmm. I have a completely different position now. You love people, you love God, and you don't expect to get anything in return. You do it because you do it, and not hope for any reward. And I found that it's a very, very good position to take in life in general. Well, for example, when we're parents, we love our children and we hope that they will love you back, mm-hmm. that they will look after you in your old age, they will grow up and keep calling you, coming to your birthdays and so on. But when our children don't do that, we're almost offended. Mm-hmm. We feel that we haven't been treated justly. Well, of course, it's good when our children are nice to us, but still, we just love our children by definition, mm-hmm. and we don't expect those niceties as due to us. They just come because our children love us, but they may not come. Their expression of love may be different, and so that turned around my concept and my idea of parenting. So, how
many children do you have?
We have 6 children.
6 children, wow, that's a big family.
Yeah. So, and actually, the miracle that happened to me afterwards, and I can share it with you. When I was beginning to rebuild my world and my life, I got a much clearer idea of what I wanted.
You mean after the divorce with your first wife?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. After all the divorce and all the pain and all mm-hmm. that. This idea, first relying and being a servant of God and being a slave of God, but nobody else's. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It gave me the permanence. And then the idea of loving and not hoping to get anything in return gave me a new idea of marriage and a new idea of parenting. And I realized that what I really wanted is a big family. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there I was, 34, no children, single. Now, I thought I was desperate. There was just no time for the big family I was dreaming about. Now, I couldn't get myself to pray, but some friends gave me a copy of the icon of the Holy Theotokos, the Vladimir icon. I liked it, and I prayed to her before that icon. In my own words, very clumsily. Yeah, I just... and it was a miracle. I met my wife, and she already had 5 children, and we had a 6th. So it's now the lesson from that probably is that if there is God's will to that, and if you know what you want, you will get it, but you will not get it in the way that you anticipate. You will get it in some other way that you would never have guessed that it would. That it would be that way. So
that's why we have to be really careful when we ask something, because in our head we already know the scenarios that we want it the way, and sometimes we don't really see the answer of God. Being blind to, we expected it to be given one way, but it actually was given as the other way.
Yes, but one lesson from that miracle, I think it was, so the significance of that was not just giving me the family that I love and giving me the opportunity to practice my new approach to relationship and to parenting, but it corrected one of the misconceptions and one of my weaknesses. Before that incident, I didn't believe at all in the power of prayer. I thought, I just prayed, I read from the prayer book, but that your prayer can actually be life-changing, and that you can actually get an answer. I didn't believe that. And that miracle actually let me know that you will get an answer. It may be different from what you anticipated, but still your prayers will be answered and they will be heard. So my attitude to prayer changed very much.
That's beautiful. And I wanted to also share a little bit about my relationship with St Elisabeth Convent. Then in 2015, when I found myself in the convent, for a few months, I was just, ready to see what it brings me. I was humble. I was exactly in the right, state of mind and soul to come to the convent and to be influenced by it. So after a few months of working here, I just started to ask myself, in whose honor it is named. I knew St Elisabeth, but I wasn't sure which one. I thought it's an ancient Saint Elisabeth, which I don't know anything about. And I was, I found it silly if I was going to come up to any sister to ask. They would find me, silly. Don't you know you are working here? How can you come here not knowing in whose honor it is named? So I kept forgetting to ask my sister. So next time I saw her, I asked her, so in whose honor the convent is named? And she was surprised. You don't know? St. Elisabeth, the new martyr, Romanova, you were reading about her. And this was such a miracle to me, such a shock. I didn't even pray to her. I just read the books about her. And she was so kind, tender, like a mother. She took me under her wing and brought me to her convent and took the best care of me. And so I was really blessed. And of course, as I mentioned, I had this experience of secular work and work in the convent. The attitude and, relationship in between their people are very different in the secular world and here. Here we call each other brother and sister in Christ. It changes a lot. To all the nuns we call mother. To all the priests we say father. And we are all surrounded by them every day. It's such an experience to be so close to the monastics and to see their way of life. To be able to come up to the priest at any time and ask them questions. to come to the church at any time and pray, not just for liturgy, but just for your private prayer next to the saint, to the icon of the saint that you want to pray for. It is priceless. It is wonderful. And we are very blessed. I mentioned it during many live streams that we have such a convent. We are the only Orthodox convent in our capital city. To have such a convent where you can not just find your salvation, and that will be your orienteer, like a iron rod, so you won't be, waving like a flag on the wind. It gives you the right path. It shows you the right path and keeps you on it. And also it provides you such a wide possibility to participate in deeds of mercy. We have so many hospitals and boarding homes that we take care of, that you can find your place. You can work with people who are in much more, unfortunate situation, not like you are, and you can go to them and help them. So it is a real blessing. Now, I hope that we are ready to show the video about Jeffrey Bream. Video можем показать? Okay, it's not ready yet. So I would then like to share with you a miracle from my life. I mentioned already a few before that, but this miracle was already 3 years ago. So I already was in the convent for a couple of years, and I already had some vivid relationship with God, Mother of God, and the saints. And so I want to share with you my story with my favorite saint. Some of you probably know that my favorite saint, with whom I have a very close connection, is St. John of Shanghai and San Francisco. Here in St Elisabeth Convent we have a church dedicated to him. And in the live chat will be posted the link of my miracle story that happened to me in Detroit, Michigan. Sister Anastasia, will you post? Thank you. So you will find it there. If you didn't watch it, you can see. But now I want to share with you another story of mine connected to St. John of Shanghai and San Francisco. It happened to me in San Francisco. I've been to St. John already a couple of times before, and each time I'm in San Francisco, I try to find each and every possibility to go and see him in the new cathedral, Joy of All Who Sorrow. And each time, next to the bookstore that I also visit, I see the beautiful pendant. Вы можете снять большим планом вот этот вот? Пожалуйста. So I want to show you the big, picture of this pendant that I have. It will be shown to you a little bit later. So I saw in the bookstore this beautiful pendant with an icon of St. John of Shanghai, and I saw that many Orthodox people in San Francisco wear it on their neck. So I always wanted to buy it. But each time I would come, I found out that it's $45 plus tax, and it was a little bit expensive for me. I had this money, but I was kind of, didn't want to spend it now. So each time I was there, I thought, okay, next time I come to San Francisco, I will purchase this pendant with the icon of St. John. And each time I didn't. So during one of my visits, during summer to the new cathedral, I came in the beginning of my trip, and then a few more times during the trip in San Francisco, and then I came before leaving to Minsk. I came to say goodbye to St. John. And for the first time when I said goodbye to him, it was so difficult to say it to him. I was so upset. Can you imagine that you are saying goodbye to your relative that you really love to, and you don't know, will you ever see this person again or not? The same way I felt. I didn't know if I would ever come back to San Francisco again. Will I see St. John or not? And I was crying, standing at his relics. There was nobody in the new cathedral, so I had my time with him, and another presbytera was waiting for me in her car to take me back to San Jose from where I was flying to. So I had this terrible moment when I was crying and feeling so sad. I was praying to St. John, please bring me again to you. I want to see you again. Please don't leave me, because he is like spiritual father to me. And so I said finally goodbye. My red nose, my red eyes would tell everybody that I was really crying. And so I was so upset, and I left. And walking to the door of the new cathedral, I just made decision. I'm going now to the bookstore and I'm purchasing this pendant. So I went upstairs. I opened the door and they have a bell when the door opens. And I see there a priest in the gray undercassock standing with his back towards me at the counter and reading the prayers. So I silently came up to the counter and he turns back, sees me and says, "Hello, Sister Anastasia." And I'm surprised because I see this person for the first time in my life. And I say, "Hello, Father, do you know me?" And he says, "I'm Father Juvenal." And he was a priest of Kazanskaya Mother of God Church in San Francisco. Now he's retired. He's a wonderful priest with whom I was corresponding online. I was supposed to visit their church, but it didn't work. So, I didn't meet him personally, so I didn't know how he looks like. But he recognized me because I was wearing my white habit. And so we started to talk. We had a nice conversation. He ordered a beautiful vestment from us, so I was taking his measurements. And then I finally came to the matter why I came here. I said, "Please, I want to buy this pendant of St. John for $45. And okay, he started to take it and trying to put it in this small fabric bag. And I prepared money during this time and prepared a few more dollars to pay for the tax, which I didn't know how big it will be. So I was anticipating to get my, pendant. And he was, frowning and saying something, boo, 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 boo. I didn't understand what he was saying. I thought he was in such a nice mood right now. And all of a sudden he started to be kind of, grumpy. And so I finally give him money to pay for it. And he says, "Take away your money. I don't need them." I said, "No, but I'm paying for this pendant." He said, "I tell you, take your money back. I don't need them. I am just giving it to you." And I said, "No, Father, maybe you misunderstand. These are my own money. I want to pay for this because I know it's not the business. I want to donate for the church, especially, where the relics of St. Jonah. So I just, I want to pay. Please accept the money." And he says, "What a stubborn person you are. I tell you, take your money back. I am just given to you this pendant." And I say, "Well, it's really hard obedience." And he says, "This is my obedience to you." And I say, "It's very hard obedience." And so he says, "And another obedience I give to you. Go downstairs to the relics and put this pendant on the relics of St. John, and so he will bless it for you. We blessed it before, but anyway, go and do this." I said, "Okay, thank you." I was, so surprised. I got the pendant. I was running downstairs to the cathedral. I put this pendant on the relics, and I was completely in a different mood. I was, saying thank you to St. John, for this nice gift, for being so kind to me. And again, saying goodbye, I was completely in a different mood. So when I left and was already in the car, I slowly started to realize what happened. And since, the years passed, when I finally told the story, I came just recently to understand that it was actually a miracle. St. John actually gave this pendant to me as a present to console me. He saw in what state I was, and he wanted to give it to me to show that, wherever you are, I am with you. Because I purchased such pendants with chain for different peoples before this case and afterwards, but nobody gave it to me for free. This was the only time. So this is my little miracle about St. John. Now let's finally see the video about our visitor Jeff Bream and about his way to God.
Your personal story of converting to Orthodoxy.
Sure, yes. So I was raised a fundamentalist, which is, for those of your viewers...
is
is a Christian.
Christian.
Yes, fundamentalist Christian. And so it was more, if it wasn't in the Bible, then, sola scriptura type, really to the max. And I went to Bible college. After I graduated from college, I went to Bible college to learn more about Christianity, because, I didn't know that much, right? Because it was very kind of narrow, this is what you're going to believe and stuff. And then I got married and we had kids, and we kind of gone around the different Protestant churches in our little community as they would implode, right? So it was more wrapped around the pastor, right? And when the pastor left or got in trouble and left, whatever way they left, then the church would implode because they didn't have any continuity. And so we were looking for, trying to figure out where do we go, because we reached the kind of the limit of different Protestant churches we would go to. And so my wife at the time was working on a historical product, and she came up one day to ask me, have you ever heard of the Orthodox? And I said, well, you mean the Orthodox Jews? And she goes, no, Orthodox Christians. We had never heard about that. And so there's this whole gap when I was in Bible college, and we ended at Martin Luther, right? And then it went to the apostles, right? So something happened between the apostles and Martin Luther, right? It was the Dark Age. And so I didn't know that. And it wasn't, I don't want to blame the school for it. It just never dawned on me that we would talk about that. And so we end up finding a little Orthodox parish near our town, which we didn't even know was Orthodox, because once again, you look at this looks Orthodox. If you look at our parish, it looks like a building, right? It looks like any building, right?
And you entered?
I entered, and actually when I arrived, I told my wife and kids, stay in the truck, because I don't know what's going to happen in this thing, because I had no idea, I had no expectations. I went in the door, and there was all these icons, and there was this incense, and there was no chairs, okay? And I was like, did I walk into the dance hall or something? I don't know what's going on here. And a reader came by, and he was showing me around the place, and it was just fascinating. And so I came out, and I have 3 kids and my wife, and they're all looking at me. 15 minutes I was in there, and I came out, and they're all looking at me like, what's going on? I said, you guys are in for a treat. And off we went, and we went from then on. And because there was just so much going on in there that, that we didn't have in the Protestant world.
How long did it take you to feel yourself as a Orthodox?
Yeah, so it took me longer to convert to Orthodoxy. So my wife and kids, they converted relatively quickly. It took me longer, mostly because I came from my fundamentalist backgrounds, and a lot of people have trouble with the icons. I didn't have trouble with the icons. I still have trouble with Mary, just because in the fundamentalists it was de-emphasized so much. And some of the other aspects of what we were brought up in, the surety of salvation, those sort of things caused me to really, and I want to make sure I made the right decision. This wasn't some quick decision because it felt great. And so I went to St. Silouan's Skeet at that time, because at some point it's been like 5 years I've been going on, and they're like, when are you going to convert? And I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I better think about this a little more. And I went there, and what I found was I was always going to have questions and reasons not to do it. And even if, I got an answer, if I only got this answer, then I'll convert. It wasn't like that. It was, I had to make the decision that, I want to do this for my family too, but for me. But I had to realize that I had to humble myself and not let my pride get in the way, that, I need all the answers first before I'm willing to make that move. And so I did make that move. And
what was the most, on that way to Orthodoxy, what was the most joyful moment, and what was the hardest moment?
Well, fasting.
Which joyful hardest?
Well, you look at me, you can tell it must be the hardest part.
These are the stories that we really wanted to share with you. Hopefully you will find something for yourself, what you can borrow to follow this example, what you shouldn't do in your life. Of course, we always like to learn on our own mistakes, but sometimes it's nice to know someone else's stories to avoid some mistakes, because they can be painful. Now, I want to show you and introduce to you our workshop. This time it will be a stained glass workshop. We produce all kinds of beautiful, funny, cute and stylish things there. Magnets, pendants that you can, hang on your windows, and even clock. We started to make them. You can send your own design and it can be, repeated in our workshop. You can choose from the catalogs that we have. So the link will be posted in our live chat, where you can learn more about the workshop and what they make. And now a very short video, it's only 2 minutes, about the stained glass workshop of St Elisabeth Convent. So I hope you like the work of our workshop. Really humble and beautiful people are working there, and it's always nice to go there and see all the magical, angels hanging around their workshop. So if you want to have such in your home, make sure that you visit our website and order one. We are carefully packing everything and send all over the world. Now we have a few questions that came to us during the live stream. All of them are connected to Marxism, because it must be such a vital topic. It seems like spreading around the other parts of the world. When it left the USSR, it started to spread in other parts of the world. That's probably why it's so vital. I will read these questions. They are asked directly to Brother Alexander, and he will try to answer them. So, in America, we were infiltrated by Marxist ideas. How do we fight against this? Next. Can there be Marxism that does not deny the truth of our Orthodox faith? And can there be Christian Marxism, or does Marxism require atheism?
Okay. So, the short answer. Now, Marxism is a philosophy. It's that tries to explain the world from itself. It doesn't have a place for God. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it explains, it finds explanations for the world in the world. It's primary. It's grounded in the teaching on matter, and matter is something that is present, can be observed, can be measured, and all that sort of thing. Now, obviously, God doesn't belong to the realm of matter, and Marxism talks about the primacy of matter, so God cannot have primacy in the world of a Marxism simply because he doesn't belong to the world of matter. So that's the basic tension at the theoretical level. There's also the attention at the practical level too. The Marxists in Russia also took a very strongly anti-clerical view because of the situations, because of the historical conditions in the early 20th century and many other historical things. Now, can Marxism be reconciled with religion? Now, there have been attempts made in Cuba, for example, but fundamentally the conceptual tension between the primacy of matter and primacy of God that does not belong to the world of matter, there's no way to reconcile these two. Now, as for opposing Marxism, now, you oppose ideas, you oppose Marxism as you oppose any idea rationally by offering an alternative explanation, and also practically by showing to others the beauty of living in a world where God exists. Now, before this broadcast, I was reading the book of Galatians, chapter 5, starting from verse 22, which talks about the visible results, the visible fruits of living in the Holy Spirit. And these are things like self-control, love, peace, things that show when you have them. So show to others what living in God, what having His Spirit in you might mean. I think that's the best way to resist and oppose an ideology that does not accept the existence of God.
Thank you so much, Brother Alexander, for such a deep insight. You're really clever, and it's very fortunate that, such people can answer people's, questions and, lead them to the right thoughts, or at least give some food for their thoughts. We came to the end of our live stream, and thank you so much for those who watch us and stay with us. It's always the most important thing to find God. And as I always say, it is necessary to find God in this life rather than in the next one. So we should hurry because it is much later than we think. I really love this expression of blessed memory of Seraphim of Platina, Seraphim Rose. We are preparing the next live stream, so please follow our YouTube, subscribe, and see you in a month. Now we will have a final prayer, and we will say our goodbyes right now. Thank you, Brother Alexander, for joining. It is truly meet to bless you, O Theotokos, ever blessed and most pure, and the Mother of God, more honorable than the cherubim and more glorious beyond compare than the seraphim. Without defilement you gave birth to God the Word. True Theotokos, we magnify you. Спасибо, брат Александр. Спасибо, что вы пришли.